Hello comedians, today I'm going to give you some overall thoughts and theory on your comedy writing and performance and ask a very important question. Is what you are performing on stage for the entertainment of your audience or is it for yourself? A very important question. I'm going to go into detail on what exactly it means and what the correct answer is. Let's get it started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Comedy. My name is Gary Michaels and this channel is dedicated to new comedians. Each week I upload stand-up comedy tutorial videos, so if you're starting out in your performing career, then I urge you to hit that subscribe button. On today's video I am going to give you my thoughts on where your focus should be when it comes to looking at the material you are delivering on stage and asking yourself a very important question. Is what you're delivering, performing on stage for the enjoyment of your audience, or is it for you? Even subconsciously, are you to gain or are your audience to gain? You need to understand that there is a fine line between giving your audience entertainment and you just showing off how different, absurd or offensive you can be. And so each time you create material, you need to look at it from the point of view of the audience. How much of your material are you delivering just to stand out, just to be different? Because there's a common trend among new performers who haven't gained much experience yet, where they go on stage and act like they have all the confidence in the world. And it's almost like they are acting in a way that they don't care if the material goes down well with the audience or not. That if the audience aren't on board and they sink the entire night, well, they've got the confidence to do that, and that alone by default should make them a great act. It could not be further from that. And if you go on stage and don't consider the position of your audience when you're telling your jokes and don't consider entertainment first, well, if the audience turn on you, they are not going to afterwards think, well, so the performer was able to accept the audience turning on them and didn't care and showed a lot of confidence, I'm going to go follow him or turn up at the next gig. Why would an audience ever want to see a performer again who didn't captivate their imagination and simply entertain them? Anyone can get on stage and lose a room full of people, whether it be too absurd or too offensive or any style of comedy you want to perform. You have the ability to lose an entire room and not gain energy and not give anyone value or entertainment. And that should be the main focus of what you're trying to do. Surely as you get more and more experienced, you can start to develop and deliver more and more a message and the way you see the topics in which you want to discuss. But they should still always come from a point of view of entertainment first. That's why people turn up in the first place, pay some money to see an act. They deserve to be entertained, and it's the only reason they are in the room. If you entertain them and they are laughing consistently, well then yes, you can drop in a few of the ideas and how you see things and perhaps get them thinking a little bit on some topics. But they don't enter the room to think differently about topics. They enter the room in order to be entertained, and at a comedy gig the entertainment comes in forms of laughter. If you don't think that's the most important thing you were trying to do in that room, well then your material is for yourself. And if your material is only for yourself, the audience are going to realize this in the first few seconds of your performance, and they are not going to be interested in what you have to say. In return, not listen to your jokes, not laugh at them even if they do listen, because all the important thing is at the beginning, you got to be likable. You got to get everybody on board. Every single time you step foot on the stage, your job at the very beginning of every set you ever do is to express yourself in a way that is likable and gets the majority of people on your side so you can continue doing the type of material you want to do. I'll give you a quick example. If you really enjoy performing offensive material, well, Offensive material needs to be rewritten and rewritten and rewritten again, and after a while of continuing to evolve as a performer, you will start to get the results you want from delivering offensive material. However, if you write down an offensive joke and it makes you laugh and you imagine it working in your head and you go on and tell it and it doesn't work, the crowd didn't enjoy it, they don't like the concept, it's too offensive for them, or else you delivered it wrong. And offensive material, when delivered wrong, is even more offensive, because from the audience's point of view, you're being immature with the amount of power you have on the microphone on stage and just want to be able to deliver offensive material in a room in front of people, regardless of if they are on board or not. A very bad recipe which will always result in a disastrous performance. Now, of course, this all means that there are going to be times in your future when whatever style of comedy you want to set out and perform, there are going to be gigs where you don't just hit the mark for whatever reason. And there's always a lot of reasons to why a set might not work out for you. Sometimes it might be reasons that you can't do anything about. Other times you can do a lot about them to make the set work for you. But it happens to everyone, and it will happen over and over again. You are going to perform at gigs and it just doesn't hit, and people don't give you the reaction you wanted, and you don't get many laughs throughout a set. Well, what can we do in that situation? Of course, we regroup, we try and figure out what we could have done different to make sure it doesn't happen again, and hopefully, if there is something that comes to mind and you can change it, well then do change it. So when it arises again, you can notice that the same problem is arising again, and now that you've put pen to paper after the last time it happened, well, you know what to do in this instance. If it doesn't become obvious as to why a set didn't work out, just keep creating new material and keep moving forward. But by always having the entertainment of your audience as number one priority, well then at least you're approaching it from their point of view. If you write out an absurd piece where you're going to do a sketch, perhaps you're even using a volunteer, it's really important to understand what kind of audience you have in front of you, who is the best person to choose in order to bring them up on stage. All these questions you're going to need to ask yourself. Now granted, at the beginning of your career you might not have the correct answers for these types of questions you're going to give yourself, but that doesn't matter. What matters is at least you're asking the right questions, and the right question is the material I'm saying for me, or is it for them? If it loses the audience and I continue to do it, then I'm a selfish performer and I don't care about the experience my audience are having around my set. And that is not going to get you booked again. You are not going to be respected by the other comedians on the bill because you're all about yourself. Well, I can give you endless amount of reasons as to why that is not the right attitude to have. Always think entertainment first, and everything else comes second, including the message you think you are so unique for having. Now, you are unique for having that message, and you do have something valuable to tell. But you have to follow the rules, and the rules are: start off basic, win over your audience, and prove yourself to your audience each and every time you get up on stage that you are worth listening to. And in stand-up comedy, the way you prove yourself is to make them laugh at the very beginning. Make them laugh, and you make them laugh consistently. And if you can make them laugh consistently, as I've already said, they will open up to hear more what you have to say, but only because you've proven yourself to be able to entertain them in the first place. Why it's so important that you need to consistently ask yourself every time you go to write on a new topic, every time you write a new joke, is this for you or is it for them? If it's for them, then the booker will be happy because all of his paying customers are happy with your set and you'll be asked back. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science. But so many comedians get this very, very simple trick wrong, because we all make the mistake. We all start out with offensive material, or if it's absurdist material, and of course we write to the most extreme of what we know. But without the performing experience at the beginning of our career, we need to watch our audience and understand that they didn't appreciate what I'm saying. I need to go back and figure out who I am and how I come across to people. And that's perfectly fine to mess that up at the beginning of your career, because that's what the lower level level gigs are for. All those open mics are for developing as a performer. That's exactly the only reason they exist, is to give you a trial run at developing on stage, developing as a writer, developing as an overall comic. And so you have all of the right in the world to get it wrong. And you should get it wrong, and you should learn why you get it wrong. That's the big secret here. It's not about just getting it wrong and getting it wrong and getting it wrong again and developing the confidence that it doesn't matter if you bomb in front of an audience. Of course, you'll develop that confidence anyway. But if every time something doesn't work out for you, you really want to get to the root of why. And so in your writing, you're not just creating new jokes, but you're writing a journal style of your character development and what did not work for you before. What type of jokes did not work? Write all the jokes down that didn't get any laugh and look at them. And if they're too offensive, or if they're too absurd, or if it's in the style that's consistent among all the bad jokes that don't get a good reaction from you, well, perhaps that is the style that you were to stay as far away from as possible. And possibly in the future, when you've gained a lot more experience, you might want to look into going back to those jokes. Maybe then there'd be something there for you, because when we start writing with a big audience and they're all on our side, because you've nothing else to gain it from. You don't have any bad experiences, bad performance experience to gain it from. So you start writing, and of course in your own head all of this stuff is amazing, and then you go on stage for the first few times and you realize that it's not just as simple as writing in a cafe or writing in your bedroom great jokes. Now you got to find a way of winning yourself over, getting the audience on your side, and performing the jokes in a way that looks like you're just improvising them and looks like they're on the top of your head and you're just thinking about random thoughts during that time when you spend on stage, and making it all connected and making people laugh at what you're trying to say. Another way is to think about it like this. If you were having a conversation one-on-one with a person and it became very obvious into the discussion that they weren't listening to anything you had to say, and instead were only waiting to hear the sound of their own voice and get their opinions across, well, it wouldn't be much fun to discuss anything further with them. The exact same thing goes when you're discussing with an audience. The audience at a stand-up comedy gig are giving you information just the same way you're giving them. Granted, you're delivering your set, but they're also giving you all of the feedback in terms of if they're open to what you're saying. Have they got a smile on their face? Are they laughing at what you're saying? Are they doing anything positive around your performance? And if you're not paying attention to that, and if you don't approach every set with entertainment first, well then you are not going to realize when the audience are on your side and off your side, and both are equally as important, because when you have the audience on your side, you need to understand how to raise the energy up even further. If they're not on your side, you need to see this and perhaps go back to the basics and stop giving them such long pieces of information, and maybe open up dialogue and do all of the techniques to get people on board, keeping it quick and keeping it simple and easy to access all of your material. And so if you're not paying attention, you are so far away from the audience, and they are steps ahead of you, rather than what is mostly acceptable and mostly successful is when the performer is ahead of the audience. Yes, you're the one who's supposed to be going on stage knowing exactly what you're going to say, knowing how funny your set is, and if you go on stage and not pay attention and not think entertainment first, well then the audience are the ones that are ahead of you. So don't put them ahead of you. Instead, do what is traditional and do what works, and stay ahead of your audience. Always think entertainment first for my audience, because that is the most important focus on where every performer should be looking every single time they go on stage. Is what you are doing for the enjoyment of the people who bothered to come out and see what you do, or is it for yourself? If it's for you, you will not last long in this game, and you will burn yourself out, and you'll be frustrated as to why you never go down well. If it's for them, all you can do in this game is progress to the next level, and you will continue to do so as long as you think entertainment first.